Hey everybody, Prepper Nurse 1 here. Today is Friday, January 8th, 2021. And look at, it's hard to believe, once again it's overcast. This is what we deal with every day this time of year. Very rarely do we get a lot of sun, which sucks, but, and it definitely affects the power production as far as the solar and stuff goes. Absolutely does affect that. So, but we still get some sunshine through the clouds, but not nearly enough. If we get, the sun comes out, it really does help. But what are you going to do? It's just that time of year, so we have to deal with it. And slowly the days are getting longer, and so, it will get better. That's the way we have to look at things. Anyway, I want to remind everybody before we get into the topic of this video that I will be live streaming tonight at 8 p.m. I'm not sure the way I'm going to title it yet, but of course we're going to talk about a lot of different things. My last live stream, so it's okay. So, and this is funny. You guys will get a kick out of this. So obviously it got broken up into two parts. So the first stream was about 40 minutes long, and then it got tweaked out and it was off. Then the second stream was a half an hour. They demonetized both of them, okay? So I asked for a review like I always do if they demonetize something. They did not give monetization back on the first video, but they did on the second one. Now, does that make any kind of sense at all? So I have to be careful how I word things, obviously. So, that's part of the game, unfortunately, that we have to play with YouTube. So I wanted to just remind everybody I will be live streaming tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm not sure how we're going to do the topic yet, but we're going to figure that out as we go. The only good thing is it's like 28 degrees today, and the only good thing about this is there's no wind. So I wanted to do a video, and I wanted to talk about winter survival. And I think this is kind of important. I just want to talk about a couple things that I think are important. If you get caught out, especially here in the Northeast, and it's snowy like it is here, obviously we have snow on the ground. What are you going to do as far as winter survival goes? How are you going to plan on surviving? Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple of things. One of the most important things in winter survival, you got to realize that depending on, like I said, now this temperature is 28 degrees, but there's no wind, so that's helpful, okay? But the problem is, in inclement weather, depending again how cold it is, how many layers of clothing you have on, what you're wearing, you got about 3 hours before exposure will kill you. So shelter is going to be, in a winter survival situation, your number one priority. Why? Because you can go 3 days without water and you can go 3 weeks without food. So shelter is going to be number one. Now the number one thing that I want to explain to people, let's say you find a nice dry spot on the ground and you can get in there and you can make yourself a little shelter of some sort, okay? And that's obviously you're going to try to do something where you're going to, try to get the wind from when the wind does pick up, and if it starts to snow or rain, that you're not going to get, dumped on and stuff like that. One of the most important things out here, guys, especially like I said, is right here, pine trees. Why pine trees? Because I can take, I'm going to come up in here, I can take these pine branches and I can start snapping them off, okay? I can snap these pine branches off, and then these here, the pine needles and stuff like that, a couple different things. I can make a pine tea out of that. If I got, if I can boil some water, I can take the nestles off of here and boil them, and it's going to make a tea, which is going to help with vitamin C. But what I'm going to use these for, I'm going to make a bed on the ground. Okay, so I'm going to actually show you something here. Now, I'm going to get up in here. Let me get up in here. So I'm going to take you up into the woods here a little bit. All right, now, a lot more snow out there, right? But under here, it's not as much. Why is that? It's the pine trees. The pine trees will stop the snow from coming down, okay? So what you're going to try to do, what you're going to look for, is you're going to look for a place where you can make a shelter. That's going to be your number one thing that you're going to want to do. You definitely have to have a shelter. So I'm trying to get through here because I got wild raspberry bushes everywhere. So I'm going to climb up in here. I'm trying not to get eaten up too much. Okay. All right. So now we're more into where there's a lot more pine trees, okay? Now, as you can see, there's a lot less snow here, but underneath this part, there's even less snow. So right in this area, now it's downhill. So what you have to remember, downhill, you could have water runoff. Now, you're probably not going to have water runoff in the wintertime. So what you're going to be looking for is you're going to be looking for a place that is maybe a little bit higher. So right here, like that's more of a depression. You don't want to be in there because again, the colder air is going to settle lower. So this is a little bit higher, okay? Between these two trees, I could start making, or these two, or just use all three of these if I wanted to, all right? Make some, take a branch, tie it off that way and that way on both of these trees, and then start putting branches and stuff down as a shelter. And then just building that up. And again, you use these branches again, same type of thing, layer after layer. But the important thing is on the ground, you're going to need to have a very big layer to lay on. Because if you lay on the direct ground, the ground is going to suck that heat off of your body. You're not going to want to have that happen. You don't want that your heat to lose heat that way. You can die of hypothermia in the summertime. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that. The ground temperature is a lot colder than above. So even in the summertime, you could definitely die, get hypothermia and die, okay? So again, not a bad spot here. I would probably look for something a little bit better if I could find it. There's pines over there. I would look in there as well and stuff like that. So I would try to find the appropriate spot to get up in here. And what I like about this area, because you got the hills a little bit higher there, if the wind's coming off from that way, I'm going to be sheltered from the wind if I build some kind of a structure here. Obviously, once you start working on some kind of a shelter, if you have some kind of fire making material, that you can easily start a fire. Again, I'm going to show you, whenever I go anywhere, always have a lighter on me, no matter what. And I don't smoke, okay? But I always have a lighter on me, because if I'm ever caught in a situation where I get separated or something happens, at least I can make a fire. Then you start looking for tinder and stuff like that. So what you're going to look for, and I don't really have them on my property. There's another property close here that does have them on there, which is kind of neat. But on my property, I really don't have them. Is birch. If you look at for birch and stuff like that, that really burns well. So you want to use the bark, and stuff like that. And so what you're going to look for good tinder. Even in here, okay, like this here, okay, so here, I'm just going to snap. See how easily that snapped off? That's good fire starting stuff right there, okay? And because it's underneath these trees, it's drier. Now, look at all these dead pine branches on here. If I can get those off, that is also going to be really, really good fire starting stuff, okay? I mean, here I am in the woods, and you're going to see a lot of stuff is down. There's a lot of, trees down from storms, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff, like even, okay, so put that down. Right over here, I walk over to this pine tree that fell down, right? I got this one here. Boom, there you go. Easy as that. Very, very dry. If you look in there where I even snapped it off, that's perfect. That's going to really be good. You're going to want to collect a lot of firewood, because getting through the night is going to be important. But the number one thing in an emergency situation outside is going to be getting that shelter in place first, because again, if you get hypothermia, you're going to be dead. Now, if you have fire making materials and able to start a fire pretty easily, yeah, get a fire going first. So then that way you can warm up as you work on it. But again, if I'm working on my shelter, where am I going to put my fire pit? again, you don't see a lot of rocks laying above the ground here, okay? So I'm gonna have to look around and see if I can't find, you know, rocks to make a fire pit, or I'm gonna have to try to dig down into the ground a little bit so that I have some kind of depression in the ground, so when I'm burning, okay? So again, there's not a lot of rocks above here. And again, if it's wintertime, it's going to be even harder to find rocks because they're just not going to be available. So those are things to think about. And but again, so you know, even like you look up here, see all the you know, the pine needles and stuff like that. That's going to offer really good shelter from any storms coming in and stuff like that. Some snow is going to obviously get through, but not as much. So that's going to be helpful. Now, snow can also be used as an insulator. But again, if you got a fire going, now that's all going to melt. So you got to really, you know, it really depends what you're trying to do. But again, the idea is to survive whatever is going to happen if you get caught out in that situation. But the number one thing that I think a lot of people do not think about is staying up off the ground so that you are not laying directly on the ground and having some kind of, you know, a buffer between you and the ground. And pine needles are awesome. They're awesome for that. So, you know, try to get as many as you can. And as you can see, there's a lot of them low enough that I could walk around this whole area and I could collect a tremendous amount for my shelter and also for my ground, you know, where I plan on sleeping. You know, it's just thinking ahead, planning ahead. You know, I'm sure a lot of you watching already have this idea and know in your head what you would do and stuff like that, but I think it's important to share the information because not everybody does, okay? So I think that's part, it's really important to let people know, you know, thought process, why you're going to do what you're going to do. Again, something like this here, if you have some kind of a saw, you can see this one's been down for quite a long time, okay? So you could get a lot of firewood off of this here if you got some kind of a saw thing as well, and it's going to be cutting. That's going to cut up pretty easy. Now, pine is going to burn fast and it's going to burn hot. Okay, so you have to take that into consideration. The other thing I wanted to say really quickly is when you get what you think is enough firewood to get you through the night, then double the pile because you're never going to have enough. And the last thing you're going to want to do is once it's dark is trying to fumble around in the woods trying to find firewood to keep your fire going so you can stay warm. That has to be a huge priority, you know. And again, so if you can find rocks too, and this is the other thing I wanted to say really quickly, if you can find rocks and make like a reflective shield type of thing so that when the fire's going, that the rocks are reflecting that heat back to you, that's important as well. Again, it depends on what you have in supplies with you and stuff like that. You know, in my bug out bag, I always have a tarp. So, I mean, obviously I would utilize a tarp, you know, as an above shelter, but then I would still put those pine burrows all over it and is an extra added layer of protection, okay? There's a lot you can do, but just being smart about stuff is going to make all the difference in the world. So I hope this helps. I just wanted to, you know, to touch on this because I think it's important, especially because I do live in the Northeast and we do have issues, you know, with cold weather. So I thought it would be neat to do a video talking about this and coming up into my woods and kind of showing you and stuff like that as well. So anyway, I am going to jump off of here for now. Again, I'm going to encourage you to join me tonight at 8 p.m. for the live stream. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of different things, which will be very, very cool. And so anyway, I was going to show you something else too, guys, really quickly, okay? So you see this big tree right here, this big one that's down, this behemoth, okay? Now that was dead, and it was standing here when I bought the property, all right? Well, it was leaning that way towards the shop, all right? And I knew at some point in the future that tree was going to come down, and it was going to come right down because it was so big and hit the shop. So I'm like, we got to get that tree down. So I had you know, them come in and they cut that tree down for me, and it was all rotted, so it wasn't worth anything. So, you know, that's why nothing has ever been done with it. You know, maybe for a campfire, but, you know, again, try and take a chainsaw through that bad boy. You better have a big old bar and be ready to do some serious work. So, you know, anyway, guys, I am going to jump off. Remember, we are all in this together. That is important to remember. We are one race called the human race, and I think a lot of people do lose sight of that. And if we can really focus on that, it's going to be a better world if we realize that we're all in this together. Also, hug and kiss the ones you love. Tell them every single day. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. We never know what's going to happen in life. So it's really important that we tell the people that we care about every single day how we feel. And lastly, STD, step, thing, and day. It's one step at a time, one thing at a time, and one day at a time. Whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you can do it. The only one that can stop you from reaching those goals is you. Nobody else can stop you. If you stay positive, stay focused, you can do whatever you want to do, and nobody can stop you. Don't listen to negative people that want to bring you down, because they're just miserable and unhappy, and they want you to be miserable as well. Succeed in spite of everybody. Do what people say you can't do, and it's amazing how good that makes you feel. All right? I will talk to you all later. Prepper Nurse 1, out for now.